This is your last call for My Wife the Dietitian. The show is just about to start.
Come on, let's go. Hurry up.
I'm trying. I can't get my shoe on.
Welcome to My Wife the Dietitian, a fun weekly podcast about nutrition and healthy lifestyle. I'm Rob, and together with my wife Sandra, we invite you to join us on this informative and entertaining journey through the complex world of healthy eating.
Join us each week as we strive to help you with transforming your overall health and relationship with food through up-to-date, evidence-based nutrition information. Exercise more and eat less? This may have worked for you in the past to manage excess weight, but now, as hormones are changing with perimenopause, your body may actually need more fuel and a different complement of macronutrients. As you work out, do you have time for a post-session meal or snack? Are you showering and running off to work or drive kids around? We know that our body will do better with some key nutrition at certain times a day. Stay tuned as we discuss all of these important themes with expert sports nutrition dietitian Angie Dye.
Enjoying the show? You can help others find it and enjoy it too by giving us a 5-star rating or review. If you feel like reaching out to us with a question or comment, you can send us an email at mywifetherd@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit our website at mywifethedietitian.com, as well as our social media pages. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Enjoy the show. Welcome to My Wife the Dietitian. Hello, Sandra.
Hello, Rob.
How's it going?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. Today we're interviewing Angie Dye, dietitian from Carpe Diem Nutrition.
It's a good name if you're a dietitian, Angie Dye, dietitian.
Yeah, right. And she said a lot of people ask about her name, Carpe Diem, and she said a lot of people say, does it mean something about fish?
I know, right? Nobody speaks Latin anymore. It's like Latin's gone out the window, but yeah, that's a great term. And what does it mean again? It's like
seize the day.
Oh, seize the day. Yeah, that makes sense.
Embrace life.
Exactly. Great name.
Yeah, so we're asking Angie today. We have some questions for her as she helps people, athletes and others, about sports nutrition, and she also uses intuitive eating with her clients. So it's a really good discussion about, what recovery foods are, like what it means and what are some good ones to use after a workout, and are we eating enough generally? And a lot of women aren't, actually. Yeah,
we get into a few, I don't want to say tangents because they're not like out in left field kind of thing, but we go in a few different directions, and there's a lot of really good information here on a few different things. So it's worth listening to for sure.
I like some of the questions you had about, do we actually need specific foods for after a workout? And, what does recovery foods mean to different types of athletes or people that aren't necessarily athletes, but just are working out or going for a walk? And
yeah, like the regular population.
Yeah.
That kind of exercise.
Yeah. And I mean, she helps people of all walks of life. So it's a really good, engaging discussion. And I think people will enjoy this.
Absolutely. Right on. Well, let's go find Angie Dye, the dietitian, and get on with it here.
Hi, today we're with Angie Dye from Carpe Diem Nutrition. Angie, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us today. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and who you help in your work?
Yes, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Angie Dye, and my private practice, nutrition practice, is in Hershey, Pennsylvania. It's called Carpe Diem Nutrition. And I have 3 specialty areas of people who I help. I'm an avid sports person myself, so I love working with athletes and focus on sports nutrition. I also have a history of clinical nutrition and working with people with digestive disorders. So I specialize in digestive health and helping people there. And I've been an intuitive eating counselor since 2012. So some people come to me for just intuitive eating, and my other clients get a little bit of intuitive eating sprinkled into most of our sessions as well.
That sounds
That
awesome.
makes sense. You can't help it, right? Because it's part of your
Yes.
practice. I feel the same way, totally. And it's so neat to hear that you had Katie from Eat, Swim, Win. We had her on episode 83. She was an intern under you a couple years ago, eh?
Yes, she was my best intern I've ever had. Sorry for other interns who are listening, but Katie is just a pretty phenomenal human. We had a really great time working together for about a year, and she helped with a lot of my sports nutrition efforts that year and was just a joy to have on my team.
Yeah, she was a lot of fun. I remember interviewing her, and she had a lot of fun information, a lot of fun stories, and she was super passionate and just eager. You could just hear it in her voice how eager she was to get out and help the world. So I can imagine what she'd be like as an intern. She probably kept you on your toes.
Yes. And she's just so well suited, I think, to help the population that she's working with as such an accomplished swimmer herself, someone who lives with celiac disease and knows gluten-free diets inside and out and knows that swim culture to a T. No one's going to be better at helping young athletes and college athletes than Katie, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, that was a really powerful episode. And I'm so glad that you guys know each other. That is really cool. And she was in Hawaii and doing an internship virtually through you. That is incredible. Love the
magic
love the internet.
Yes, technology is pretty cool when it works.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, this is great. And I know you help a lot of women, kind of midlife women, maybe perimenopause, postmenopause. And a lot of women are trying to maintain their lean muscle and trying to stay healthy with exercise, moving their body. If they have the time in their busy schedules with raising kids and older parents. But you had a blog post that I really enjoyed. It was all about recovery foods. And I want to bring that up because it's something that people ask me about. Like, if you're just like going out for a walk or a hike, do you need to think about recovery foods? And like, what does it actually mean, recovery foods? And why would an athlete need them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think sometimes when we hear recovery foods, we picture, a giant protein shake and, bodybuilder and using recovery foods. But really, if we think about, as you brought up, perimenopause and menopause, or just, any of us who are really trying to go after those recommendations for exercise. Let's say the American Heart Association recommends 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity, weight training twice a week. These are things we know prevent heart disease, prevent chronic disease. So when you say kind of just going out for a hike, for someone who's just beginning hiking, their body is going to need food to recover from that. So, recovery foods aren't just for elite athletes. When we're asking things of our bodies with exercise, beginning a new exercise routine, or exercising towards a goal of getting stronger or getting more limber or getting fitter, using food to help our bodies absorb that training, it really allows us to then go wake up the next day and want to do that again and be recovered and ready to do that. So I do think that everyone can benefit from recovery foods. It may look different depending on what type of exercise you're doing, but I think we all benefit from food as recovery.
Can you just give a brief sort of layman's description of how food helps your body? Like, we're talking about recovery foods and we need to eat certain things, but what is it? What's actually happening in our body and why do we need that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think people kind of have gotten this message that protein is important for recovery, sort of the little darling of macronutrients. Everyone is excited to get their protein in.
Totally.
I think in case there's not, protein helps to repair muscles that have kind of experienced a little bit of micro damage during workouts. Protein helps to repair that. If we're doing strength training and things of looking to make muscles bigger and stronger, protein can help to create muscle protein synthesis and help to make those muscles bigger and stronger with that exercise that's being put in. What I think is overlooked a bit is that our bodies don't have gobs and gobs of places to store energy in the form of carbohydrates. We have these glycogen stores, which is our storage form of carbohydrate. We have maybe enough to power about 75 minutes to 90 minutes of a workout. So you think about these recommendations and people trying to get, 45 minutes to an hour of a moderate to vigorous workout, they're going to be depleting, a good chunk of that glycogen storage in their bodies. So when we talk about a recovery meal or putting in these foods that we've kind of just burned through or gone through as we've exercised, carbohydrates are a big important thing to think about replenishing so that we can top up those glycogen stores once again. We can have energy to do the things that we want to do for the rest of the day. We don't usually get to go home and just like nap after our workout for the rest of the day, right? Most of us are, like you said, raising families and having jobs. So we want to be able to have energy to be able to go do the rest of the things we need to do that day. And then
Right.
our glycogen stores are ready to hopefully do another workout the next day and keep up with our fitness and training in that regard.
Okay, this
Perfect.
is where I have a question because a lot of my clients have, they're under fueling. They're on a low
Yes.
carb diet, and I have to kind of talk about maybe increasing the carbs because their body needs to burn the carbs and replace the glycogen stores, as you mentioned. And do you see this a lot where people are like under fueling, and that's why they're tired, and that's why they're not able to exercise or get that benefit from the exercise as much?
100%. I think it's probably a difficult thing to study and know an exact number of people who are under fueling. But I think people come thinking that they have terrible things going on. Oh my gosh, do I have this syndrome or that syndrome? Or am I, malabsorbing gluten? Or do I, have brain fog? I have this, I have that. And like, okay, let's start with getting you eating enough.
Yeah.
What you're telling me you're eating and what you're telling me you're trying to do with your body and asking of your body, this isn't enough energy. As a dietitian, I can't recommend you putting in less energy than you're putting in. How about we try fueling up before these workouts, recovering afterwards, eating consistent meals and snacks, and then reassessing the brain fog and the fatigue and the joint pain and all these things
Oh,
that we think are maybe perimenopause symptoms or some other underlying problem that we have. Nutrition can be magical in that regard.
For
That
sure.
when we're putting in enough of those good things, some of these ailments go away.
yeah. And there's so many people that I talk to, especially women, are doing the intermittent fasting. So they wake up and they go for a workout, like an intense workout for an hour, and they have not given themselves anything to eat since the night before around 7 or usually dinner. And
Yes.
they're basically really pushing their body a lot and then they will not eat until about noon because it says that on the clock, right? Okay. I'm looking
Oh,
at the time and that's when I'm going to eat instead of listening to the body. And what are your thoughts around that intermittent fasting and like exercise and not eating breakfast?
yeah. I think there is really a pretty good body of research looking at this being a big detriment for women. I think a lot of the intermittent fasting studies that have been done that show benefit are on a sedentary population who are not exercising. And even there, it's really the benefit isn't seen any more so than a traditional calorie deficit. So what we do know from women, there's some really good studies being done looking at this, and that working out in that fasted state when you have fasted all overnight and then you're waking up and going and doing a workout first thing in the morning creates a tremendous amount of stress on the body. So a lot of women in perimenopause and menopause who are getting up at the crack of dawn to do these workouts and doing them fasted are really shooting themselves in the foot in a way of not giving their body fuel to do that, creating more stress in the body. Sometimes we see, a lot more detriment in terms of injury and even unwanted weight gain with not eating and not fueling yourself properly for workouts. So personally, it sounds awful to me. I've never attempted this myself, but I'm pretty compelled by the research, particularly around women, active women, that fueling for those workouts and fueling after those workouts is the way to feel good in those workouts and to get the metabolic adaptations that you're looking for so that you can keep doing it and be, the fittest old lady in the gym.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm so glad I asked that question because I have so many clients and people that I know, like just playing pickleball and stuff that are basically go to play for 3 hours without having anything before they leave the house because they're fasting. I say that in quotes, intermittent fasting. Yeah. And it's just this trend that is like just huge, especially for women, midlife women, because they feel like, oh, it always used to work when I was younger to just exercise more and eat less. And I feel like that is actually not helping now because of your body is so good at being like conserving that energy and storing fat. If it's not getting fed, it's going to store fat. And so it's actually doing the opposite. That's what I see.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if you see that too.
Yeah, the same. I think there's some pretty good research looking at even cortisol levels with kind of midlife women doing fasted workouts, and even old sports nutrition research looking at how decision making is better with even just a swish of carbohydrate in your mouth during a workout. Even just the brain's perception that it's getting some energy, sometimes performance and decision making is better. So asking your body to do these things, whether it's pickleball or strength training or a HIIT workout or a run without any fuel, is just an incredible stress on the body, particularly the female body.
Wow. That is powerful. I'm so glad, Rob. That's got to be like the quote for the intro.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's nice to hear that the same message is being repeated. It's like from various people that we talk to who are in the profession, and they're all saying the same thing, which unfortunately counters a lot of what you read and see on the internet and social media, So, I mean, people are confused. They don't really know what to believe, but hopefully the message from the science team of dietitians and professionals who've been looking at this stuff for years will, eventually shine through, and people will start paying attention to that instead of the trashy stuff that you read in Instagram or wherever it's being spread.
Right. And typically, those places where that information is coming from are trying to sell you something. So
absolutely.
Just open your eyes about that.
Mm-hmm.
What is this fasting thing that's popping up trying to sell me? A supplement, a membership, an app, what is it? Where is this coming from? Where's the science for that?
Yeah.
Also maybe just be your own experiment. Be your N of one and the experiment of your life.
I like that.
Have a little oatmeal before you go play pickleball and see how your pickleball game is.
Right.
Versus a fasted pickleball game. Are you better? Are you faster? Did you score more points? Are you less sore? Are you less crabby? Guess what? That oatmeal helped you.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So just be curious about it. I don't think falling for everything that's offered to you on the internet without science to back it up is typically a good plan.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, with just for so many women, I think caught in that diet culture and have been dieting for decades, it's like, okay, they realize that they're gaining some weight. They have more, weight around the middle, and their present level of activity they don't feel like it's doing the trick, but then they start to actually restrict and reduce their calories. And I think that is actually backfiring. Like as you mentioned, like being fed and like actually using the macronutrients to help your body to fuel and to actually run smoother. Like how you can't, go very far in a car with no gas. And I feel like
Yes.
a lot of women, it's just like, you know what? I got to stop eating. I can't eat. And then they have the cravings and the roller coaster ride of, just, oh, I haven't eaten all day because I fasted. I didn't eat breakfast and I didn't have time for lunch. And then by dinner, they're just like, oh my God, starving. And they overeat at dinner and then they have like the digestive issues. I don't know if this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
speaking to something that you've seen a lot too.
definitely resonates. And so I think, as dietitians, it's nice to kind of help people have a different way of looking at that. Okay, so here's what's happening. You're eating the paint off your cabinets at dinner time. How does that feel? Right? How does that feel? What would it feel like to roll into dinner and you're hungry for dinner, you're excited for dinner, you want to eat dinner, but you're satiated after dinner, and you need a snack or want a little dessert, but it's not this intense, craving, oh my gosh, insatiability. A lot of that comes from that restriction, and that's really
Yes.
what intermittent fasting is. It's restricting your body from energy that it needs. So that's
Yes.
why I love intuitive eating. If people are open to hearing about intuitive eating and the research around intuitive eating, when we feed our bodies, when we give our bodies what it needs, those cravings and that stress around eating and that insatiability usually falls by the wayside when we're well nourished.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. And I love that because intuitive eating is just listening to your own hunger signals and trying to tune into them. Because I think for so many people, years of dieting and restriction, they've turned those hunger cues off. And
Yes.
Rob and I just did an episode this week called Hunger versus Appetite. And we were talking all about the internal, like our stomach is growling, like the physical and physiological need for food that our body needs for fuel. And then the whole idea that appetite is more like about, the sensory aspect and the psychological feelings around food and why we're eating, and just kind of to be mindful about, okay, why am I going to the fridge right now? Is it because I just had an argument with my spouse, or is it because
Mm-hmm.
I had a really tough meeting, or I'm distracting myself because I don't want to take action on this, or whatever it is? Because with I do craving change classes, and it looks at the whole idea of being mindful about like reasons for eating. And we eat for all various reasons, not to just fuel our body. But I think it's really important to tap into listening to our hunger. And if it's been 5 hours or even 4 hours and you're starving,
Mm-hmm.
eat, like there's
Mm-hmm.
the food rules of, a time frame, and like, oh, I can't eat because I'm fasting, or you keep telling
Right.
yourself, oh, I'm on this diet and I can't eat right now because of this food rule. I mean, it really can be detrimental to our health. And I think as women age and get into the perimenopause and menopause time frame, when the hormones are starting to be, transitioning, it's like puberty, but in reverse. And it's like, it can really impact our relationships and like how we're, our mood and just our energy and our brain fog. And there's so many systems in our body that are sensitive to hormones. And if we're not
Mm-hmm.
fueling ourselves appropriately, that's going to take a toll on our whole body and our health and how we're feeling. And this is what I see in my practice. And are you finding that too?
Oh, yes. And I listened to that episode. It was really good. I was happy to hear it. And
Oh,
it's, I think you both talked a little bit about, the stomach grumbling. And I think people know that's hunger, right? But, with intuitive eating, that's one thing I really like to, help a lot of people, women in particular in midlife, who've maybe been dieting since they were, wanted to be on top of the pyramid for the cheerleading squad. They don't understand these signals. And so maybe they understand stomach growling feeling faint, feeling crabby, that really, if you look at, Evelyn Tribole's hunger and fullness scale, that's a pretty aggressive hunger.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
towards really uncomfortably hungry. So
Hmm.
what I love to do in my intuitive eating work is helping people find where's that comfortable hunger, that like excited to eat, ready to eat, but not waiting until that really stomach is grumbling. You're kind of past that comfortable eating window. So that takes a lot of practice, particularly if you've always ignored it and always followed some diet, always looked to these external cues of when it's time to eat, of finding what your hunger looks like to you, and maybe some signals that are there before before you start hearing very aggressive noises.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah. No, that's so true. It's great that you practice the intuitive eating with your clients, because I think it weaves into all the conversations, and it's so important as a dietitian to be mindful of just the empathetic nature that, as a counselor, as a dietitian who's coaching people. And, it is such a big piece of our relationship with food, and just to be like actually tapped into how our body's feeling, and how food makes us feel too. Like it's like how
Hmm.
when we eat, like as you said, that hunger scale of like, oh my God, I'm not going to eat for another week because I just ate this like massive dinner at a buffet. And, you don't want to get to those extremes, because then that throws things off. Like the balance is kind of
Hmm.
off.
Yep. But it happens. And, I feel like instead of mm, using blame or shame or guilt or, oh my gosh, why did I eat so much at the buffet?
Yeah.
Just using that as an opportunity, like, hey, next time I go to the buffet, or hey, next time someone suggests going to the buffet, maybe we do something else, because that wasn't a really wonderful experience. I would like to sort of stay within my comfortable hunger and my comfortable fullness. And this is something that I'm working on, but it
Hmm.
really takes practice. And sometimes those really uncomfortable full feelings or really uncomfortable hungry feelings help us kind of tune in and figure out better strategies to prevent getting on either one of those big extremes.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure, I mean, even like for people that you're counseling, like athletes or people that are working out, and, trying to figure out what foods to eat after a workout. This is something I've noticed on your blog. You have lots of great articles about recovery foods and how to eat as an athlete, like, when you're training, and is the pre-race meal the most important. It's actually the whole week ahead, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. It's like it's like there's so much to it. And yeah, I wanted to ask, like, what makes a good recovery food? And do you have some examples of tasty and healthy recovery foods?
Yeah. Well, kind of tying in intuitive eating, when I work with people, I always like to help them include their favorite foods. I don't think life is about not eating foods that we enjoy. So,
Yeah.
um, on my new client form, I always ask about favorite foods, and if that's something that I can include in a recovery food, I really try to do that. Someone says I love yogurt, I love bananas, I love eggs. These are things that we try to come up with some ideas for recovery foods that include favorite foods. It's a nice opportunity to do that. So I think a good recovery food is always going to be a food that you enjoy. If it can tie into a time that lines up with a meal, if a recovery food maybe comes in the form of breakfast after a workout, or lunch or dinner after a workout, that's pretty great to think about having protein in that meal and carbohydrates in that meal. Maybe we sprinkle in some produce into that meal. All those things are going to help with recovery in terms of putting in enough protein and carbohydrates and including foods that people really enjoy. So it can be really different from client to client on what a good recovery food looks like, depending on when they're going to include it and what types of foods that they really enjoy.
Here's a
That
question
makes
for
sense.
you. Sorry, Sandra.
It's okay.
There's a lot of products on the market. I'm sure you're aware that they kind of convince you that you need to have this certain product after your workout, and just your regular food in your fridge isn't going to cut it, because this certain product, whatever it is, has everything you need and it's low calorie or whatever the claims are. Is that just marketing hype, or sometimes you do need those, or certain people might need those sometimes?
I would say it's 99% marketing hype.
That's what I thought. Okay.
I would say occasionally, I think as dietitians, we're always going to promote food first. What's in your refrigerator, what's in your pantry first. But there are times, particularly with athletes, with busy athletes, where something that is packaged or portable or already in this nice little to-go type of thing that is going to help recovery more so than thinking of maybe traveling home 45 minutes to make yourself an omelet and toast and fruit. If you can't do that, having something that is already prepared for you or on the go for you will maybe surpass whole food in terms of recovery. That's just because of the convenience factor.
Absolutely.
So I would give it 1%, Rob. I'll give it.
Okay. I think I would say the same thing. I'm just such a cynic when it comes to the stuff that's marketed to people, and people just eat it up, and I'm like, come on, it's just marketing. Can't you see that? And that's one of the perks of being a dietitian's husband.
Yes. One of the many.
Yeah, exactly. I've had my eyes open to these things.
Dietitian husbands are very smart.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Thank you.
I agree with that. As you mentioned about the packaged and portable, and I think a lot of times it comes down to planning a little bit, like just looking at your week on the weekend and figuring out, what food you have in the fridge and the cupboard and what meals you might be able to make. Like I love the idea of like taking along a protein smoothie or overnight oats or even a wrap, like some sort of like an egg wrap that, even when people go through drive-throughs, like the foods that they're buying, a lot of those foods you can make at home. And if there's a bit of planning, it takes a bit of planning, and preparation and buying the food and having it there. But to do that more often, it helps with getting that whole food in. And, there's got to be something that's beneficial in terms of just homemade food versus the ultra processed and, drive-through food or whatever. Like it feels better too, I think. But you got to be a little bit more prepared and organized though, I think.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think what's driving people more now these days is the cost of food, the cost of drive-through food.
Yes.
I don't think is as attainable for people if they're going to be doing that on a regular, if they're working out 5 days a week and hitting a drive-through 5 days a week to get that recovery meal. Oh my goodness, you better have a pretty good gym and food budget to be able to do that. But, to batch cook maybe 5 egg burritos and freeze them, you can add spinach, you can add black beans, you can add peppers, you can add mushrooms, you can add all these things that probably aren't going to show up in a drive-through egg burrito for a lot less money, probably tastes a lot better. And, kind of the confidence that you did it yourself and have it with you and don't actually have to stop to drive through somewhere. I've been stuck in some pretty nasty drive-through lines. I don't know about you guys, but if you're in a hurry to get to your next thing, you don't want to be stuck in a drive-through line and stuck with something that's maybe not as tasty or high quality as something that you could make for probably less money.
Yeah, that's so true. I know sometimes the drive-through, depending on the time of day, like if everyone's thinking the same thing and going through the drive-through, it's like, oh my gosh, it's going to take 15 minutes just to get whatever piece of food. And Yeah, I think you're right. The cost and also time, like people just don't have time. Everyone's so busy. And
Hmm.
it takes time to buy groceries and have food prepped. There's cost involved too. But it's, as you said, like the drive through is getting more expensive. So it's kind of that, where does your budget go? And also prioritizing health and just knowing that if you're making your food from home, like at home, then you know that it's probably exactly what you're eating. And I think people that have sensitivities or allergies, food allergies,
Hmm.
they end up having to do a lot of homemade because they can't eat a lot of the restaurant food and takeout just because of their intolerances and how the food might make them feel. So yeah, I mean that they're almost forced in that way. But yeah, there's so many factors in just eating, daily, like
Hmm.
feeding a family
Yeah.
and eating healthy.
Yeah. I should also mention that I do feel like good recovery food should be easy. I just don't want any listeners to think, oh my gosh, Angie and Sandra and Rob are saying I should make all of my own recovery foods all the time. And that, feels really daunting to think about, food prep in that way. But I think in the article you're mentioning on my blog, there's things that are really, really easy that don't involve cooking, talking about putting together a few jars of overnight oats. That's really, really easy. That's not, Julia Childs and your, browning butter and things like
That's
this.
right.
You just shouldn't feel daunting. You should find recovery foods that feel really easy. I mean, yogurt and fruit and granola can be really easy. There's no cooking involved at all in that. So if you want to step up to making your own egg burritos, fabulous. But if that feels daunting, start with something really easy that's almost, an assembly type of recovery food.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I think half the
absolutely.
battle is just having things on hand. So if you are
Hmm.
buying the right things from the grocery store and you have them in your fridge and in your pantry, then putting it together in a bowl or on a plate is the easy part.
Yeah, it should be easy.
Yeah, it should be. I do have a
Yes.
question too about your work with athletes and the recovery food component. At what point does a regular person who's, I don't know, like we sort of mentioned this in the beginning, like going for a
Hmm.
walk with their dog in the morning,
Yes.
at what point does that person become an athlete that needs to be eating differently? Do you know what I mean? Like, because a lot of
Yeah.
people, a lot of the things you read are based on people who are working out hard and they're lifting weights and they're like
Hmm.
bodybuilding or they're a marathon runner. And a lot of the articles and things you read are, nutrition for those people. And so
Right.
the person who's just doing a light workout just to stay kind of in shape,
Hmm.
do they need the same things, or is there sort of, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I think, a walk with your dog is probably not a big metabolic stressor. I would
Probably,
say
yeah. That's one end of the scale.
you could probably do that fasted and be all right and come home and have whatever kind of breakfast you would like. And that's maybe not going to, it's not going to probably deplete your glycogen stores in any way. It's not going to create little muscle tears or things that need, extra protein to repair from. But I think as dietitians and healthcare professionals, we should be encouraging people to do a little bit more than a dog walk. We
Sure.
want the heart rate to get up a little higher. We want people, especially women in perimenopause and menopause, to be confident with weight training. And so, if we're talking about that level of activity, and especially if it's a new level of activity for that client or person, we do want to have those good recovery meals coming in. And then, of course, if you're talking about a marathoner or someone training for an Ironman or these things, that's a whole bunch of different nutritional
Right.
considerations that go in. Fueling during the workout, a lot more pre-workout and post-workout, and a lot more adjustment there to compensate for really big losses. But if you are kind of shooting for these American Heart Association recs where you're getting your heart rate up and into those higher zones for 45 minutes or more, some of these recovery recommendations really do apply to you. And some people don't consider themselves athletes when they're doing that type of activity.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of wondering. And I guess the same principles apply, but maybe the quantities or, the timing or whatever is maybe a little different, but it's the same concepts. You need to repair your body after a workout, whether you're doing a marathon or just, going for a light jog around the neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay.
And kind of even beyond that, even to Sandra's point earlier about, maybe someone says, "Oh, I'm not really an athlete. I just went for, a little 2-mile jog, 3-mile jog around the neighborhood, and I'm just going to do that fasted and shower and go to work and go on my merry way and then eat the house down at 7:00 at night."
Yeah.
So maybe it's not even, as much recovery in terms of replenishing glycogen and providing muscle, protein for muscle repair, but it's helping regulate consistent energy coming in throughout the day so that we don't get that big hunger spike later in the day from an activity that's maybe new to us, even if we don't think it's a really big, vigorous type of activity, to still consider some recovery there.
Right. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. And I think also when you guys were talking about just like the decision fatigue of like what to eat, if you haven't thought about it or planned ahead, especially if you're working out fasted, you don't have the brain power to like make those decisions. And so it is good to like think ahead and think, okay, when I'm finished exercising or working out, that I am going to have like something that has a little bit of protein and carbohydrates and some veg or fruit.
Yes.
And just, that plate ratio just in a simplified form, but just like not a huge meal, but at least something just to just help your body keep going through the day, especially if you're, like you said, if you're going for a jog and then you were fasted, so you didn't eat anything before that, and then you're sweaty, you have a shower, and then off to work, maybe a coffee in hand. And it's like, oh, your body is probably going to need a little bit more fuel and some, and even it's like recovery foods, even though it's not like you're not an elite athlete that's training for Ironman, but you still do need the nutrients.
Yeah, it's just good self-care. Our bodies are pretty amazing. The little hypothalamus in our brain, right? It's going to let you know that you dug yourself a hole and signal big hunger signals later if you do that. So, recovery, to Rob's point, may look really different for someone doing a really big training, but I think recovery after any type of activity, and that can line up with a meal. It doesn't have to be a whole extra thing that you're doing, but definitely not doing it fasted, definitely eating really, regularly throughout the day to support whatever level activity you're doing is going to be beneficial.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great information. We have one more question for you, and if you've listened to our podcast, you'll know what it is, but it's the question. We like to ask everyone because we like to get different ideas and we like to share different ideas about food and different recipes. So we kind of pretend we're all going to a potluck and we want to know what you're bringing.
I love this question, and I love that. I don't know if any of your other dietitians on this podcast have ever said, I think people are curious, what's the dietitian bringing to the potluck?
Exactly.
Is it really healthy? Does it have antioxidants? Is it all homemade? What is it? And I think probably earlier in my career, I would have tried to do that. I'm going to bring farro or quinoa or something, that like the right dietitian answer to the potluck. All the potlucks I've ever been to, I'm like trying to get my kids from practice, trying to finish up my work day. Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm going to this thing and I have to bring something. Oh my gosh. So in that case, this has been a winner for a lot of times that I've been invited to a potluck, is a really nice, super, super easy Mediterranean chickpea salad. Has anyone answered that before on your podcast? I don't know.
Love it.
It's really easy. I mean, if you're super industrious and soak your own chickpeas and make them all from scratch, good for you. I do not. I
No.
buy canned chickpeas and I
Yep.
give them a little rinse. Cut up some tomatoes, cucumbers, olives, feta, a little bit of lemon and olive oil. It's a super big hit at potlucks,
That's
and it
delicious.
takes about 10 minutes to put together,
Yep,
tops.
exactly. Love it.
And yeah, it's going to be my favorite for sure.
Yeah, I love those
sounds
salads.
delicious.
We got one of those the other night. I actually bought it. We were just running late and they had one of those in the deli, but it looked fantastic and it was delicious. And it was the exact same thing. It was a chickpea sort of Mediterranean, with all the things you said, but someone else made it, but that was fine for what I needed.
Yeah.
But easy to make if you have the time and that's a winner, I would say.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And we also are, we're planning on a road trip around North America, and we're going to come visit all the guests that we've had on the show and have one of their potluck meals.
Yay! That sounds fun.
I know
That would
that's
be
part
fun,
of the
isn't it?
prerequisite is depending on what you answer. That will determine
right.
whether you're a stop on our tour.
Well, see, it's a little different potluck versus, if you came to my home, I might make you something a bit more extravagant. But
Okay.
the potluck, it's a challenge getting
is.
yourself to a party, getting your kids there, whatever it is. It shouldn't be something that is super elaborate and isn't going to be, taste great if it sits there for a little while. So potluck is a challenge. It's more challenging question than maybe you realize.
Well, like you said, I think everyone wants to know what the dietitian's eating.
Yes.
It's like when you go shopping in your local, and we live in a small town, so a lot of people know Sandra's a dietitian, which is why she doesn't shop a lot, and or she goes when it's not busy. But she doesn't want people like looking at her and going, "Oh, what she got in her cart."
Oh yeah.
Oh, is that a carton of ice cream in her cart? You know what I mean? It's
three types of ice cream actually.
Yeah.
A variety,
and
right?
I'm not even having a party. This is just
That's right.
This is what's on the list this week. Yep.
Regular Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, totally. No, that's good. And actually, I noticed that you do grocery tours too. I do them locally here too, and I love it because it's a great opportunity for that's where nutrition starts, is what you bring home into your home, right? So, are you doing them locally in Pennsylvania?
I have over the years. Yeah, I my practice is pretty much insurance based. Maybe probably 95% of my clients in Pennsylvania get their nutrition services covered 100% with me. Unfortunately, insurance does not cover grocery store tours, so it's not something that I do a lot of, but I have had clients who really feel overwhelmed in a grocery store, and they're happy to pay for that service, to just have someone kind of hold their hand in the grocery store and see that it's not a scary place, that we don't have to shop only on the perimeter, that there's good things and easy things, nutritious things all throughout the grocery store, and some tips on getting through the grocery store without a lot of anxiety.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love that. And it is overwhelming for a lot of people. So it just kind of distills it down to some basics. And like you said, you can, the canned beans are in the inside aisle, and the nuts and seeds, and it's not just the perimeter, as I think a lot of people think. And it's valuable experience. And I love I do groups with school children, and it's so neat to get them thinking about food and health and nutrition, and actually taking those principles back to their parents, and saying, hey, there's sugar in this cereal, Mom, maybe we should get this one instead. It's like, oh, yay, a win.
Yeah, to have that, just, I think, curiosity, and to have it be a positive teaching experience at the grocery store isn't scary, but there's, lots of good things in there, lots of good ways to support our health.
Totally, totally. Oh, well, thank you so much for all this great information. We kind of went on a few tangents but I think it really just it was just so valuable and comprehensive. And we're going to put, your website, Carpe Diem, into the show notes, and that article that you wrote about recovery foods. And I wonder if you have any other final thoughts or any questions that you had.
Oh, I just wanted to thank you for inviting me on your show. I think you two are delightful and you put out really good content, and it was just a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Angie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's awesome. All right. Well, you enjoy your upcoming weekend. And it was great talking with you, Angie. And I'd love to get you back on the show sometime.
That would be great. Thank you. You have a good weekend too.
Okay.
Thanks, Angie. Take care.
You too.
Oh, it was great talking with Angie.
Yeah, it sure was.
I loved her where she said protein was the darling of macronutrients.
I know. I kind of laughed at that too. There's so much focus on, it's almost like it's protein or nothing, right? Like you got to have your protein or it's your whole workout's out the window.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, definitely there's a place for protein. And I loved how she also said when people think recovery foods and they think giant protein shake.
Exactly. Big protein shake or a big slab of meat, like some kind of, massive amount of protein.
The slab of meat, I bet, is more for men. I don't think
absolutely.
Women think that way, actually.
No, like the men's magazines, the workout magazines and exercise websites and all that, it's all so meat focused. Like it's meat or nothing.
And actually, it's funny because women that would benefit, a lot of women would benefit from more meat because of the iron. And
yeah, it's kind of like creating that whole carnivore caveman image, of like I'm big and strong and I'm going to eat a lot of meat and I'm going to just chew it right off the bone. And that's the image I get when I read some of these. And it's definitely not accurate.
Yeah, and we actually need... plant-based proteins are great because you can get, from beans and nuts and seeds are a great way to get alternative protein.
Mm-hmm.
And talking with Angie, I mean, just from both what she sees in her practice and what I see, most women, especially midlife women, are under fueling and they are hungry. And I remember Angie said, that just sounds awful, like to, be working out after fasting and not fueling, like not giving yourself anything in the morning before you work out. Because I see that all the time. And a lot of times these women are just not getting enough calories and you're pushing your body to do so much through the day that like all these stressors, like micro stressors in your life. And if you're not giving yourself the nutrients to deal with life, you're going to suffer. So anyways, this was a really good conversation and I'm so glad we talked to Angie.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
And and we also referenced Katie with Eat, Swim, Win, all about body image and nutrition, episode 83. And Katie and Angie had worked together. So it was kind of a neat connection. Yeah,
that was kind of fun hearing that, hearing about those stories they had.
Yeah. And we're going to have in the show notes, we'll have a link to Carpe Diem Nutrition, Angie Dye's website and her services. So people will be able to see all of the information she has. She has a lot of blog articles about sports and nutrition and fueling. And also we did the episode recently on sports drinks, Nutrition Nugget 80. Mm-hmm. And we compared some sports drinks. And also recently Appetite versus Hunger, Nutrition 82. And that's the one that Angie said she listened to and she totally agreed with because in her practice, she uses intuitive eating with her clients when she's helping them with sports nutrition. So that was one of the things we talked about. And the hunger scale is another episode we did. So that all kind of weaves in together. Exactly. Yeah. Lots of good information out there. So be sure to check out her website and her blog articles there. We'll link that in our show notes. You can also check out our website. It's pretty good too. There's lots of stuff there.
and that is at mywifethedietitian.com. You can send us an email as well if you'd like to say hi, or if you've got some ideas for the show, things you'd like us to talk about, questions, confusions. I'm sure there's a few,
misinformation and myths.
Yes, lots of misinformation out there. So we're happy to set you straight. If you are confused about something, don't be shy. Send us a email. And that is mywifetherd@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Feel free to connect with us there as well. We've also got a newsletter that comes out once a week. So if you're interested in that, that's free to sign up for on the website. It gives you some recipes, some tips, updates on what we're doing, links to episodes that we've just released, things that are coming up, that sort of thing. So it's a good way to stay in touch with what's happening on our end. And please rate and review the show. That's super helpful for us. It keeps things moving forward. It helps other people find it. It gives them an idea of what the show's like, how you like it, that sort of thing. So if you could do that, that would be amazing. And don't forget to share the show with your friends. That's also super helpful. So that is it for this week. Well, it's not it for this week. That is it until Wednesday when we have our Nutrition Nuggets coming out, our little mini episode. So until then, have a great week, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on My Wife the Dietitian. If you like what you heard, don't be shy. Leave us a comment or review, and be sure to share our podcast with your friends. If you'd like to hear more, hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media pages for updates, episode trailers, and other odds and ends. For more info and links on what we discussed on today's episode, check the show notes. We'll be back next week with another informative and fun-filled episode.